Hello and welcome to the bakery at Tuscan Kitchen at 67 Main Street at Salem, New Hampshire. Here in the bakery, we bake all of our bread, we bake all of our desserts, and of course, we make all of our fresh pasta. Today, we're going to make one of my favorite fresh pastas, a very simple pasta called orecchiette. Orecchiette is Italian for little ear. Orecchio is your ear, and orecchiette is a little ear. Very, very simple recipe. Basically, start with 3 ingredients. We have semolina, and semolina is a very coarse stone ground flour, okay, that is milled from durum wheat. Durum wheat is a wheat that grows in Italy, North America, and Canada. So we're going to use 2 3/4 cups, okay, of semolina. 2. All right. There's 2. We're going to put that in your mixer. If you have a KitchenAid mixer, I happen to have a Cuisinart mixer here today. We're going to use a couple of pinches of salt. I like to use sea salt. And then finally, we're going to use a little bit over a cup of water. Now the water is warm water, and the reason we use warm water is because semolina is a very coarse flour, and what we like to do is we like to use the warm water in order to allow the semolina to absorb the water and then to develop the dough. It takes a very long time to mix because it's so coarse, so the warm water kind of jumpstarts it a little bit. So first things first, we're going to blend the salt and the semolina together. Once that's done, we're going to take 1 cup of warm water and we're going to add it slowly to the mix so that it incorporates together. I'm going to put a little bit more, and you can do this by eye based on what you see in the mixer. As the pasta starts to come together, you'll be able to tell whether it's actually dry or too wet. You know, dough is a living, breathing thing, so it really absorbs everything that's going on around it. If it's humid, the pasta will be wet. You'll need less water. If it's dry and cold, the pasta will be dry. You'll need a little bit more water. We're just going to put a touch more water here. And what I like to do here is I like to blend the dough for about 5 minutes. And I want to get the ingredients incorporated. I want to start developing the gluten in that semolina flour. Once the dough is developed, or at least developed in the first phase, what we're going to do is we're going to shut the mixer off. We're going to lift it up. We'll take your dough out. Your dough should be warm. You'll feel it in your hands. It'll be a little coarse. So what we're going to do is we're going to actually finish kneading it. We're going to finish developing this dough on the bench, okay? Now, we're going to use a little bit of all-purpose flour. We're going to sprinkle it on the bench. And the way to knead this dough is really to kind of just work it with your fingers initially. Flatten it out a little bit. You'll feel it. You'll feel it to be kind of coarse. You're going to then put it on the floured bench. And you know what? Lightly floured, because you really want to create some friction here, and you don't want to add a lot more flour to this dough because then it will start to dry out, and that's not what you're looking for. Now I'm going to work the dough on the bench a little bit, and basically what I do is I flatten it out on the bench and then I fold it. And then I repeat that. So, you know, if you haven't gone to the gym today, this is perfect. You won't need to go because this is going to give you about 15 minutes of exercise. We're going to do this again. We're going to keep folding it, and basically you're going to keep folding it until you feel that rough texture start to get smooth. And so what I do is I do a combination of pressing it on the bench, and also I work it with my fingers. I almost stretch it a little bit, and I flatten it out and I stretch it. Then I put it back on the bench, I fold it again, and I repeat the process. Once that's done, what you're going to do is you're actually going to kind of roll it up into a little ball, and you could do that by folding in the edges like this. And then you're going to put it kind of onto the table and cover the top of it with a wet cloth. What we're going to do now is we're going to let this dough rest for about 20 to 25 minutes, and then we can start cutting some orecchiette. So let's talk about the equipment you'll need to make orecchiette today. So here is our dough. It's rested. You'll notice that it's no longer coarse. Now it has a smooth, supple texture to it. So basically what we need is a small paring knife. Okay, and make sure it's a sharp knife. And I'll explain why in a minute, okay? And you'll need your 2 pasta machines. I have brought them here today. These are my pasta machines, okay? So what you're going to do is you're going to cut a little piece of the dough. Now, when you look at the side of it, you really see that now the semolina has absorbed all the liquid and the dough has developed beautifully. So what we're going to do basically is we're going to make a little log. We're going to roll it out almost like you're making cookies. So use your fingers you know, kind of work the dough. You don't need a lot of flour for this. You might want to get a little flour on your hands before you start, but you really don't need a lot of flour because you really want to get a little bit of friction into this dough. We're going to warm it up a little bit with your hands and get ready to actually cut orecchiette. Orecchiette is a very simple pasta that is originated in southern Italy, in the Puglia region. But all over southern Italy, Campania, Sicily, Calabrese, everywhere in southern Italy, you'll find some form of this pasta, whether it be cavatelli or orecchiette or fusilli, those types of very simple pastas. My grandmother used to make this pasta on a Sunday. She would have her sauce simmering, and her and my aunts would sit around the table and they'd make orecchiette, and they would just pass time. You know, pasta is really, it's an art. It's very simple to make, it's just time consuming. So the way that the nonni, or the grandmothers in Italy, would pass time making pasta is they would sit around making it with their hands and they would just talk about the things of the day. So basically the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take this little sharp paring knife and we're going to cut. We're going to cut the little log of orecchiette dough. Now here is the trick, all right? This is something that's going to take you a couple times to do. You're going to want your right hand to have flour on it. You're going to want your left hand not to have flour on it. So now you take the paring knife and you take your left index finger, put it on the knife, and you pull. You actually create these striations or these rips in the dough. And those rips are very signature and they're very classic of an orecchiette because what they do is they actually capture the sauce. So basically, here you have your little ear, your orecchiette. And what you do is after a few, you'll get the hang of it, and you want to almost spread the orecchiette dough across the table. And then you want to form it over your right index finger, okay? And then you put it right on the table. I like to put a little bit of flour on the orecchiette so that it dries it out a little bit. Don't worry if they don't look the same. None of them are going to look the same. That's the beauty of a homemade pasta. None of them have to look the same. It's very simple once you get the hang of it. Initially, you might find that the knife will squash it or it'll stick to the bench or whatever, but you'll figure out just the right amount of flour and just the right pressure to apply on the knife so that the orecchiette form up perfectly in the shape of a little ear every time. And here you have fresh orecchiette.